start the monthly meeting of the Avon Board of Ed at 7:04. Before we get started, I would like to ask if we could have a moment of silence in remembrance of Ethan Na and his family. Thank you for that. It's hard to believe it's only been a week and a half, but I do want to acknowledge that our superintendent, our administrators, our counselors, our staff all really came together for our community and reached out to this family and made this more doable and a healing process for our students and our staff. And I think I can speak on behalf of the board by saying that we truly hope that our students find peace, that they feel valued in their pursuit of joy, and that adults will be role models of hope and kindness. So if you all would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start by reading our mission statement. Our mission is to inspire in each student a joy and passion for learning and a commitment to excellence, personal integrity, and social responsibility. I always think that's a good segue to our Avon Achievers. So I'd like to invite Mr. Kimball forward to recognize our AMS family, and Houston will assist in handing out the certificates.
Keelan, I'm going to call you up. If I got to stand up here, you got to stand up. Yeah. That's how it goes. All right. So,
I usually go over here so you can get photographed by the camera.
In any event, I usually go off the cuff, but today it was a little more difficult. There was a lot more to talk about, so I actually wrote something. So, with that said, for Caitlin's dedication to scholarship, community service, and leadership in school, she's receiving the Avon Achievers recognition tonight. She's a devoted student who is passionate about her academics and extracurricular activities. Caitlin is a member of the REOSO Corps, the cross-country team, track and field team, as well as being part of the AMS musical last year for Schoolhouse Rock. Caitlin's volunteered her time during Flex to support and interact with our students with special needs. She gives back to her community by volunteering at Apple Rehab and was a mentor over the summer for a special education summer program at RBS. On top of that, what I need to add is she's just a delightful human. I have no other way of saying it. On a regular basis, she'll always greet you with a smile. She'll always say hello. She walks in the building bouncing, and that helps set the tone for everyone around her. And for me, it's awesome. And I greatly appreciate it, and I always do. So congratulations, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I've just been told that Dakota couldn't make it today, but I still want to read about him. I think it's good that we do. In a similar fashion, Dakota's one of those kids who kind of comes in and does the same thing. Has this exuberance about him, comes in with a smile, says good morning, and sets the tone for everybody else who's walking in the building, which is great. So for Dakota, he's an active participant in many after-school clubs and activities at AMS, including being the treasurer of the student council, is a member of the AMS safety committee, a poetry club, and participates in flag football. He is involved in his community and was team captain for Relay for Life, raised money for the L.T. Michael Murphy's Memorial Scholarship Foundation, and participates yearly in the Red Nose Day fundraiser. So thank you to him, even though he can't be in this.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. I'm glad that you mentioned Dakota as well, because I think it's important to recognize the work that would have had them celebrated with us. And we do have a viewing audience, perhaps, so it's nice for them to hear. And Caitlin, congratulations. Being called a delightful human at such a young age is not a bad way to get going. So we are very proud of you. Continue to be that sparkle in our community, and we wish you all the best. I know that you probably have come this evening to celebrate Caitlin, so if you don't want to join us for the rest of our meeting, we're perfectly okay with that. We are happy to release you so that you can start your Thanksgiving plans. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Way to start on this.
My best is in
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the Board of Education regular monthly meeting minutes from October 16th, 2018?
So moved.
Houston moves, do I have a second?
Second.
Jason seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Objections? Okay. Now we have our communication from the public. Not sure if anyone here would like to come forward and share any comments or have questions. Ms. Chase, you're all set. Mr. Macy, you're all set. Tyrone, you're doing well. All right. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Now, items of information. We don't have our student reps with us this evening. I didn't hear, do you know if they're coming later or you hadn't heard either? If they do show up, would you be opposed to hearing from them at another point in the meeting?
No.
I did not, but I do know that, because they don't have school tomorrow, I think
Exactly.
they were on the last train out of Georgia.
I understand.
And then we'll see them on Monday.
All right, excellent. If they do come, though, we'd love to hear from them. All right, so let's move on to committee and liaison reports. So I'm going to ask, did I miss the, oh, I apologize. Heather, it's your turn. Okay. Financial report. Heather Mashad, please.
I'll make this really quick, just like I shared with the Finance Committee. I don't have much to share. October was pretty uneventful, as it was in the last 3 cycles of years, so everything is still in the black. We're still on trend, and I'm sure that there'll be more to report in the coming months.
Does anyone have any questions for Heather? All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, committee and liaison reports. Curriculum and professional practices. Jackie.
We have nothing to report. Our next meeting is December 4th.
And that's at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock?
I think it's 6 at Central Office.
Okay, thank you. Finance. Jay?
The only things I want to bring to our attention are items that are on our agenda already. So under consent calendar, the transfers and the new business, the RBS locker contract, and the natural turf field contract. We'll discuss those later.
All right, excellent, thank you. Jason, negotiations.
Yeah, negotiations, we were able to reach an agreement with the custodians and maintainers and mediation on October 30th, if I recall. And as we sit here right now, there are no pending negotiations.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
actually my heart.
Yes. All right, and Laura could not join us tonight for policy. They did reschedule the meeting. It's coming up on, when is it, a week from?
Tuesday? Tuesday.
Tuesday,
So which day is,
the 27th, is that right?
it's a week
Okay.
from today?
There wasn't a quorum at our previously scheduled meeting.
Yes, I have it at 6 o'clock at Central Office
So
on
it's the
Tuesday, the
27th?
27th. Yes,
6.
yes. Okay, Houston. Liaison reports, so board rep to Curriculum Professional Development Council. I'd like to invite Bogdan if you'd like to report on how that day went.
Yes, thank you. So our chair, Deborah Shute, and I had the opportunity to attend the CPDC. It's a full day event. I mentioned this last time we had this update. A lot of work, and I think one of the great benefits is seeing administrators and teachers from across the different schools together in one location working through a lot of different things. Some of the topics that we covered is the update on curriculum work, elements of a quality curriculum. This is a lot of work that they did that was collaborative, where they edited, reviewed, and finalized different documents. So that was really, really neat to see. They discussed informational and digital literacy continuums. There were new course proposals as well as primary instruction materials. I know for ELA we talked about some books and some authors, and it was I think a big feature was women authors. That was part of that. Talked about SRBI, processes and procedures, and then professional development.
Donna, did you want to add anything to the update? I did too. All right. Thank you, Bogdan. Okay, so next, Avon Board of Finance representative.
Okay, at the last Board of Finance meeting, the major concerns were on the ongoing revaluation, and the latest estimates are we could see as much as a 2% decline in the grand list, which has budget implications for everyone going forward. Also, the items are upcoming for referendum, that was being the turf field, which is important to us, and then the town-wide communication system. So we will know more about how that goes on the December 12th referendum, next Board of Finance meeting is, they postponed the November meeting and they pushed it out to December 17th, at which point we'll know what the referendum results look like.
Thank you, David. All right, representative to Avon Town Council, Jason.
Yeah, let's see here. There was a meeting on October 23rd of the town council. I was not available, but the superintendent and the chair were at that meeting. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all. Essentially, the only item for discussion was the teacher contract at that meeting, if I'm not mistaken. There was a town meeting on November 5th that I attended. Jeffrey was there, Jay was there. That was just to move the communication of certain projects to referendum. I think that went probably as well expected. There was a town council meeting on November 14th, which I think we all are aware of because I believe we were all there. So I'm not going to update you on that. And the next town council meeting is December 6th, which I believe will still be in the 30-day window of the filing of the teacher's contract with the town clerk. So the town council will have their third opportunity to discuss the contract if they so choose.
Thank you, Jason. And Jackie, board rep to Capital Patient Education
Nothing
Council.
to report. They are having, their next meeting will be in December.
Thank you. Still looking for volunteers if anybody else.
Always looking for volunteers.
Okay.
And I continue to forward all the information I
Yes.
get. I think I can attend the one in December, so that'll be really.
Excellent.
If I may through the chair,
Yes.
I have been at least one other meeting in the meantime, so just to be helpful, big picture way what's being discussed is quite a bit to do with magnet school funding and whether or not the state will be putting money toward magnet school funding, or the possibility exists that they'd be looking back to local school districts to fund it more than we do now. As you might imagine, none of the superintendents at the meetings liked the latter option. No one signed up to pay more in tuition for the magnet schools, but from a financial standpoint, they are underwater at present. They're definitely in the red. They're operating at a loss. And to be able to be viable, the state will have to make a decision about whether or not they continue to fund the magnet schools at a level that can actually keep them open. And that is the majority of the conversation that's happening at these rec meetings.
Thank you. All right, next is board chair update. I think I'd like to take just a moment to recognize the Veterans Day festivities that we had. I'm really proud of our district for keeping school on that day, whereas not other districts do, because the students really are engaged in what the meaning of that day is all about. I was privileged enough to have the time to travel to all 5 buildings with Dr. Kanamula, as well as with the veterans, and I will say that it was really well done because every building did something a little special that was a little different from the building before. So they made it that much more engaging for the veterans too that are with us all day, that start with breakfast. And we had such talented students perform musically, play instruments. It was very touching. It was really impressive. The middle school, I will say that Mr. Kimball gave such a moving speech that for the rest of the day, our representative from the veterans, Lieutenant, Walton, commented on what Mr. Kimball had said. He was impressed with pointing out just how small a number are actually in the military defending the rest of us. So if you have a room of about 250 people, only one person would be in the military to defend us all. And I think that really is an engaging way to think about the sacrifice that they make with their families to protect our rights. So that was very moving. Then we went on to, I want to say Roaring Brook was next.
Yes.
And each class sang a different anthem for each of the military services. It was really very fun, and the kids seemed to really enjoy it. Then we moved on to Pine Grove, if I'm correct, and they had a dance that was done to represent the sacrifice. They had multiple classes participate with their own version of thank yous. We went to Thompson Brook. They were served homemade pizza from our kitchen staff, which was delicious. So if I hear my children say they don't like it, I don't understand it, because it was very good.
They had lunch with the veterans also, the students also.
Exactly, they invited them in, and Jason's son was able to sit in because Jason was represented by his father was there, which was really nice to meet him. Each building accumulated more parents. They started coming with us as we went because they represented their family in that building. Then they're like, I'm going to stay for the rest of the day. So it was really nice. Then we moved on to the high school was the finale, and it was very moving to come off of such a somber feeling in that building. And Jackie and I were able to be there it was impressive to be in the auditorium, well, not the auditorium, we were in the gymnasium, and all of the students are, in the bleachers, and just the tone was just so moving, and Mr. Brochu kind of emceed the whole thing, and the students sang along with the band. It was really well done. So I just wanted to acknowledge that each building took the time to put a little bit of heart into it and make it unique. Other than that, again, I just want to reiterate how proud I am of what our district has done to rally at a time of grief, and I am so appreciative of the steps that we're taking to continue that healing process. So that's where I will finish and move on to superintendent's report.
Thank you. In the hiring report, you see we have some resignations. Page 16. Of course, we are bidding farewell to our longtime colleague, Barb Barone, from the People Services Office. We had posted that position and moving forward to make that a smooth transition, but wishing Barb well. One I would like to point out, two I'd like to point out, the special education teacher you see from AMS was already out on leave right now, so we have a long-term sub in that position for the rest of the year anyway, but she will not be returning in the fall, and she was good enough to let us know that in advance so that we're able to move forward and permanently fill the position. Also, I want to point out our senior network administrator, Justin, has resigned from his position. That is putting us in a position of moving forward as quickly as possible to try to hire a replacement. That is an absolutely key position. That is the czar of our technical world, from network administration, security, passwords, you name it. That's our key from a central office standpoint. Justin has accepted another position closer to home. Justin drove in from Massachusetts every day. He's accepted a position closer to home, a private company, which, as you know, in this field certainly pays higher people with those kind of technology and networking skills. May as well say right now up front, while we're on the topic, I think we're going to have a conversation again about the contract for the replacement person. Remember, we had some strategy negotiations in the executive session earlier on in the summer related to this, but I think we may need to do a little bit of changing on our part to continue to recruit and maintain folks in this division. Every one of the people, first of all, we're down one right now. We already had a resignation that's been hard to fill from that department. We had a field tech that resigned that we are still trying to fill right now. And then we have Justin's resignation. So they were already short-staffed. We've been making up for some of that with overtime and some outside consulting through Middle State, who has been in and out of the district over the past year or so prior to my time. So just note that this is the path moving forward. We're 2 months. So we
That
are
should make the transition easier, I guess.
hoping that we can find someone. Yep. We have the posting ready to go and moving forward. That is a non-affiliated position, one that then the superintendent needs to negotiate the contract for. Again, we're going to have a conversation about where we land with the salary amount for this position. So other than that, the enrollment report, you see, we discussed earlier tonight's budget meeting, our continued growth in kindergarten, and you see from October to November, we're back up 10 students. So it's up and down. We were down 10 students from August to September, and then we went up 10 students from October to November. So a little bit of a moving target right now, and a lot of the registrations are in kindergarten. As I mentioned earlier in the budget workshop, in the past week we've had 4 additional. So the strategic plan, first of all, I apologize that I didn't send out And what I'm about to say, at the same time, that thank you, Ms. Moy sent out, if you haven't seen it yet, you may in your email request via our doodle poll mechanism. We've been going through the multiple stages related to the district planning and the goal setting and soliciting feedback from the teachers and the staff, the buildings, as I mentioned last time, we'd be doing. And I feel like we're at a point where I'd like to have a conversation with the board again, just around what we have right now, what we have gathered, and what the path forward looks like. And that, I think, needs to be its own session, not trying to squeeze it into a board meeting. So I asked Shirley to send out, I said, my calendar is a little bit crazy for the next month or so, as I'm sure everyone's is, with all the work events and the holidays coming, but I said, go onto my calendar and find the next 2 nights that I can either clear something or that I don't have something already. And let's just throw a rock in the wind and see if they happen to be available. So that's why it will look like the dates are so soon. I was just putting it out there to see, and if not, then I'll go back to the drawing board. But I'd like to sit and have another retreat where we talk about where we are right now. That said, from an update standpoint, on our last professional development day, as you know, I mentioned we did utilize a portion of that day to gather the feedback related to our current practices and our path forward, kind of a keep change activity. What are we proud of that we are doing, that we think we need to continue doing and work differently on or to move forward with, and what other areas of focus do you as a faculty and a staff think that we need to consider? Donna, if you want to speak to that a little bit more, because I'd like to give Donna kudos while we're here, and she put together, sometimes I have the idea and architect of some things, and I'm able to rely on people and flying around from meeting to meeting sometimes to put the thoughts that come out onto paper. And this was another good example of having a great team here that can do that. Donna put together the activity for the most part that the buildings did. So if you want to speak to what that looked like.
We took the 3 focus areas we currently have, culture, achievement, communication, and we realized that we needed a 4th area as we worked with the administrators in terms of systems. So we defined what those look like, kind of a broad definition of that, and then gave some sample priorities underneath of what we might be working on. Then there was a space in there for folks to respond to, as Bridget said, what are we doing well? Another section for, what do we need to do better or what do we need to learn? And then, kind of some of those next steps, other comments. And it was set up in Google Docs that the groups broke into smaller groups. Most buildings did about 8 to 10 people per group. That's a lot of groups district-wide, so we're still pulling all of that information together into one document, and that will be used to inform, the work as we continue forward.
So I think that, thank you, Donna, thank you again with the work associated with that. And we did it in conjunction, I should say, with the rest of the administrative team and the building principals, as we talked about how to lead into it, because we wanted the building principals and the department heads to lead the conversation. Donna and I went building to building, though, while they were working on this. They staggered when they did it throughout the day so that we got a chance to see them working on it and interact with the staff and be able to speak some words about why it was important to us, to gather their feedback and so on. And we really saw some great work and some great conversations going on. It was a really good day. I was proud of the work that they were doing, and I think that, as I explained when I did the last update with the full PowerPoint presentation, I think it's an excellent way for us to move this plan forward, because at this point, we literally have the input from nearly every person that works in this district to bring back to discuss again at the board. I think this was a good way to do it, that we were able to utilize some of the time we already had set aside for our own professional development. Of course, this does drive some of our professional development, having these kinds of conversations, so it tied in nicely. And I want to thank the building administrators for making that work also, and the intense work and conversations it was for our faculty and staff. I've reviewed, of course, we were joking earlier in the budget workshop that tonight, the first budget presentation was like Heather's Christmas Eve. And for me going through and seeing these kind of conversations happen, and then getting those Google Docs uploaded that I could read, every one of the comments, and I did it, I have to admit, late into the night, the same night that they got put up, because once I started going, I wanted to make it through all the schools. It was really exciting to hear what people had to say about the work that we're doing in the path forward. So, all of that said, that's what we have to bring back to you and to put into a format to move forward. And you could see if you were at the budget workshop tonight, thank you if you were able to make it, I know it was a hard night adding the meeting on, that we are already starting to try to prioritize some of our budgetary actions, for example, into that same methodology, in those same focus areas that we've been talking about as a board and also as a district. The good news is we're not far apart. We've had conversations as a board about the path forward, and they sound a lot like what I hear from folks that work here. So, go ahead. And I was just going to say, yeah, I was just going to say, please respond when you can to the doodle poll. If those dates don't work, I will find another one. Doctor, sorry.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to invest all the effort into this, both you, yourselves, and all the administrators and teachers and all the work that went into it. I think this is critically important. And I was going to ask about how aligned are the goals that we work through together, what the schools and the representatives from the schools achieve, and it sounds like they're aligned. So again, thank you. And from our point of view, what can we do to make the progress or make progress faster? I'm glad the tool is coming out soon. I think that's a big step. So to me, I think this is one of the core areas of our responsibility as a board. So.
And I think that when we meet again, it'll be a lot easier to see what the path forward looks like, because I think it's sitting there for us now. We just all have to have a conversation about it so we can move forward. So, thank you. Committee meeting dates. So in the packet, Shirley, do we have these? We have to get our committee meeting dates in the town for next year, and we have had a number of conversations around this. Is it in my binder? Under my binder. No? Shirley, excuse me, is right here.
Sorry.
Right until the 11th hour, we were tweaking these. In part, we were trying to match up CPDC to the curriculum and professional practices and so on, like we had discussed previously, to make sure those dates make sense. So I want to first stress that we're just bringing these forward as something to talk about, because we've had a lot of conversation around how often the committee should meet and the rules are and so forth. One of the things I think we've talked about in smaller committees, but we should talk about again, point out as a board. Generally speaking, the committee meetings are all, by definition, quote, special meetings, in the sense that they're not meetings of the full regular Board of Education. So having some on what we know we need to have on the calendar to give to the town that work for us as standing committee meetings is ideal. But I think we have to reserve the right to add in where we need to add in without fearing for the fact that we are adding in a quote special meeting, because I know we had that discussion already. And so if you look at these, and Shirley put these together based on a lot of these conversations we've had here and behind the scenes, so thank you, Shirley. We just wanted to bring these forward. We're trying not to. I was wrong. Even with no school tomorrow. Thank you, Amir. Super excited. Would you like to see the committee meetings that we were talking about for after you graduate?
Yeah.
I'm only kidding, they're actually for the spring. So this is what you just walked into. And this is who has the 18-19 calendar, so here's another one there. Happy Thanksgiving. Glad you're here. So, our regular monthly meetings, you see, continue on in the normal schedule. Well, we can say in advance, June 18th, we never know what that might be. Like, could be that after graduation, could be the day after graduation, could be the night before. Who can say right now? That might be one that we have to revisit, but to get it on the calendar, that would be the normal meeting. The standing committee meetings, we left finance because of the way we move these finance meetings, the motions forward, like we are again tonight, monthly, so that we can handle budgetary transfers and so on. Excuse me. tell me where, because she just fixed these again. It's okay.
The April finance committee date should be the 16th, not the 9th, because we don't hold meetings on vacation.
Thank you, that's the vacation week this year, the 16th, so let's change the 9th to the 16th. CPP, let me just start there. We already had a meeting scheduled December 4th, and Jackie and I are already talking through agenda items there, we definitely need that. January and February, we were going back and forth from the CPDC standpoint in so far as course selections and what program studies might need to be brought. And we left these for the time being because, one, we were having trouble not conflicting with a board committee meeting. One of the proposed meetings, I believe, was the 15th, and it was already given to another Tuesday. So we left it right now on the schedule as not having a meeting with the quarterly idea, Jackie, like we talked about, but knowing that we might need to add in between. That's how we did this from CPP. Policy.
I'm open to these ideas, but the only fear I have is having an extremely long meeting.
Yeah, me too.
I think we have to always be balancing.
I think we have to balance
what we
both
need
sides.
and how long we can pay attention and make good decisions.
Policy, what we spoke about for the time being in the policy committee meeting more than once was quarterly might not be enough, but could we make a go of every other month and try to be diligent in the way we brought forward the policies. Certain times of year, particularly after the beginning of the school year, as you know, we get more policy heavy, particularly with the laws that always seem to change in the middle of the summer or the beginning of the school year and go back to July 1st. Again, these are just through the end of June, so we're just trying to manage what we know we might have in the hopper from now until then. Any other comments about that or questions? See errors, concerns? Jay?
I just have one question about the finance meeting in February. I know Heather, you normally like to have it closer to the board meeting. Does that work, or do you want to try to change it?
I certainly have enough time to close the month. It's just a matter of the information resting for an extra week, essentially. So I don't have an issue with it.
Okay.
I can close the month.
And you know, part of the issue there is the February vacation,
Right.
so it's hard. Thank you for asking.
Do we have to provide the town clerk with our fall meeting schedule as well? My memory is, I think we're supposed to provide them with the year's proposed meeting days.
What they asked, you're right, what they asked for right now was through the end of the school year. So we told them we would provide that. And see how this works, so that then we can determine the rest of the year. Okay. All right. There's my update on that. Before we go into the community resource guide and district services, I just want to put a couple more thank yous out there. I appreciate that the board was present to hear all the same information at the town council meeting. I think that was great that we were all able to be there. It was a very long night, so thank you for staying through all the security session and so on. If you were able to do that, I know everyone was not able to do that, but we're all on the same page regardless, and I think that went very well, and I'm appreciative that we were all able to be there. Likewise, just to echo, without getting into the entirety of it, because we heard it from Deb, the collaboration that took place between the town and the schools for the Veterans Day ceremonies, it really was some of the best I've ever seen. It was a great day. The students and the veterans and our students really enjoyed it, and I think really had a true understanding as a result of it about Veterans Day. If you don't, I know this is out of order, but since Amir just came, if you don't mind, I know Amir was there that day through the chair. Amir, if you want to add in anything about that or relate to what I just spoke to.
I think just I like how there was a survey that said how the students were interested in actually joining the Army, Navy, Reserve, any type of those positions, and they were able to join a reception with the veterans so I think that was also a plus that was added. And as always, it's always good to see people. We always say the Pledge of Allegiance every single morning, but to see those people who actually fought in the war on Veterans Day and to celebrate them is something like none other. And I think the event always goes well, but when we add a little plus factor to it, it just adds more of a great experience.
Thank you, that was great. Actually did talk about that, so thank you for bringing it up here. Again, in line with the Community Resource Guide District Services that, for the most part, I will turn over to Dr. Merriman to begin the discussion about. I want to start by saying that I'm incredibly grateful to our Avon Police Department for for many things of how they've worked so closely with me and with us, but in the latest student tragedy that we had to manage, I couldn't have asked for a better partnership between the school district and the police department from the beginning through the end, the way that they worked with us to via notifications and working with the family and so on in a very difficult time. And also, even after we were trying to run some of our crisis meetings and so on, there were parts of those with us, which I know those weeks I was still under there, but they really were above and beyond to be of assistance to us, not just as what we think of as police officers. That wasn't necessarily the normal role, but they were with us start to finish throughout managing the situation. Likewise, I want to thank the town who was helpful to us. Susan Alexi from the Youth Service Board, for example, reached out to us to provide any resources we might need. She came through on one of the days we were providing counseling here to check in with us. So I think some of the management around a terrible situation brought out the best in people. And I just want to thank everyone who was helpful to us. With that said, I will, and the board members who, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, were right alongside of us at services and so on for Ethan. And I received, I haven't forwarded it yet, but a very nice email, letter written to me from Ethan's father. He asked me to also forward on to thank me, the entire district, and the Board of Education for the support that we showed to their family at this time. So that said, sometimes timing is good, but also unfortunate at the same time. We were working on this community resource guide, as you know, the one that I sent out with the notification related to the passing of our student for months. And on the one hand, that was good because we already had this mostly completed. On the other hand, we had wanted to send that out as a way to communicate with the district, with the entire town, about how we're working together to provide services for our youth and our families in the town. And instead, I sent it out with that notification because it made sense to do so. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kim for you to talk a little bit about that and what we're doing related to mental health and wellness in the district.
So one of the things that I just want to, kind of timeline for people is at every school we do have in place a crisis team. Like, it is organized every year, and the composition of that team can vary in terms of situations, but for the most part, our school social workers, our school psychologists, our school counselors, our school nurses are participants of that crisis team. And in a situation like we recently had, that was very helpful, because I have to tell you that by the time I got to the high school, I had received the notification and got to the high school crisis team was already meeting, talking about what their steps were. And I have to say, it really served me peace of mind to know that it happened, and I didn't have to be in the room to ensure it. It just started, and that was testimony, I think, to our staff and how they operationalize their crisis teams. In this particular case, we do have a plethora of resources that are certainly utilized. I hate to say this, but unfortunately our teams are prepared for such events. They know what to do in these events. We certainly talk about the kind of communication that we need to do and how we need to respond. What we did in this case is we organized counseling both at a community level as well as an in-school level. What went out with Bridget's notification was access to the community, which was really great because we actually had a couple of students who had moved away who actually came and accessed our services because they knew about them and they had a relationship. So it's very nice to see that we can support a whole community. Within the school, we had regular supports. We use an all hands on deck method for these types of situations. So as the high school needed to pull in ancillary staff, we do so from other buildings. I'm happy to say that for the most part, the management during the school day really was under control and we felt we could meet most of the needs. We only accessed staff from other buildings on that very first day back, which made more sense. We also were concerned about making sure that we're responsive to all kinds of different needs for students because there are certain students that certainly have a close relationship, but there's also students for whom this is a subject that is very vulnerable to them, so we wanted to make sure we really access. So we provide supports at a systemic level, community level, a school level, and then an individual kid level. We literally sat down and made names, a list of names of kids we wanted to make sure that some adult reached out to and had a conversation with. In a situation like this, this event would also affect our staff. So that was another component that we really made sure we put into place. We used a local community provider for those individuals who might not want to really speak to a colleague, but might want to just speak to a neutral party. And also we reminded them of our employee assistance program, which is a free service for them to access. Communication is a really key piece of responding to any particular crisis. So the communication, as you saw, that came out from our superintendent was communication around the event. It is a sensitive thing because you want to protect the privacy of the family, balance with the need-to-know information. And so we really were trying to work hard to kind of make that communication effective so that staff knew what to do as well as the community was aware we had supports available. After every event, by event it's a global term, not just this type of event, we continue to revisit what anticipated the crisis, how we might be able to prevent, where we can prevent in the future, how we might be able to improve our responses in the future as well. And so part of what we really are talking about is professional development on mental health for our staff, and I actually want to advocate all staff. Because one of my great takeaways from our recent event is how it did impact not just certified teachers or paraprofessionals as we might think, but custodians, secretaries. You know, this is a widespread impact for all our staff, and so we want to kind of look into some possible resources. In fact, we have a lead on a possible free resource through our insurance company where we might be able to access some professional development to staff. In the meantime, we really are also trying to stratify that because I want to continue the expertise that we do have in our system related to mental health. And again, our primary lean on for that are school social workers, school psychologists, school counselors, and yes, some degree, school nurses actually provide a really big support for mental health. I don't want to overlook what they contribute. So really ensuring that their expertise continues to grow. As you know, I think, although it's not a new subject, I think we're all feeling the impact of an increased attention that we need to pay towards this type of issue. So with that said, I'm constantly working with those groups to talk about different ways that we can do early identification. That's really critical, and as well as being able to collaborate with community providers in order to respond in a holistic manner. Because schools can have a portion of support that we provide related to education, but we really need to have good, solid partnerships with our community providers so that we really receive the right background supports for what really sometimes is a whole family support system in these moments. One of the other positive things that have really come out of this is the number of students who've come forward looking to make their own contribution to changing things around mental health. I have to say I was so touched spending time with high school students this past couple of weeks, really thinking about their insight and their understanding and their perspective on this type of issue. And as many of you may have already heard, some of them are really generating some fantastic ideas. They want to do fundraisers, they want to do conversations, they want to talk about how to embed this better with their advisory kind. So they themselves are contributing to where we could go in the future and how to better address mental health. As far as the community resource guide, I just wanted to put it out there that we've actually had this community resource, as you know, we've been working on it for at least for as long as I've been here.
2 years, I think.
Yeah. And although I think there was a list that predates my arrival, we've contributed to adding to it. We've collaborated with Correct on that. And most recently, we actually did have a group of, actually I think one of our members that are here, a counselor and a school psychologist got together and kind of look at it and make sure that it's a more updated version. And that was the draft that went out. And I say draft because we were still working to finesse it and polish it. But we obviously were in a critical need to be sure it went out sooner than later. With that said, I always want to make sure that the community knows it's not an exhaustive list. It's never going to be. Sometimes it's not going to be as up to date as real time, as providers will come and go. We also, as a public school district, are not in a position to endorse any particular community provider, so we always have to put out a disclaimer. It's not that we're advocating this provider over someone else that might not be on the list. It's just these were the providers that our professionals knew about and have some experience with. So, if there are any questions?
Can I, if you don't mind, can I ask for a little more clarification? Because obviously I know this, but I think the board needs to know. Back to the Cigna piece that we have discussed, and I know Mr. Shaw and Mr. Medic both already have a role in trying to bring into district, and also we give credit to Mr. Papa, who originally brought a piece of that idea to us. So happens to be that Mr. Papa's spouse works at Cigna, and our health insurance is through Cigna. So Mr. Papa had a conversation with me, had one with Sean, and then we all had a conversation as a leadership team how we might be able to tap into some additional services from Cigna. So Heather, Roberto, if you want to speak to what that looks like, I think that's a good idea.
Cigna has been a really wonderful partnership for the district for several years, truly. And when this incident happened, kindly enough, Bridget is correct, Mr. Papa, he used his own influence with his personal relationships. They came back around with an offer of 8 hours of professional development related to exactly what Ken was just discussing, free of charge for the district, and they're willing to break it down into 2-hour, 4-hour portions. They have some criteria, but it seems relatively easy to meet, and at that point, we're setting up a meeting with him, and then Mr. Medic and I'm guessing Dr. Merriman will move forward on what would be best for our staff.
Yeah, I want to say I got a lot of feedback about the attachments on the original notice that went out. That was very positive. People really felt appreciative of
tips.
I forget now exactly what it was, but
how to talk to your children.
Yes, and the resource guide, and I also think we did send out the other resource guide, which was the how parents can really get in touch with the people in their building, and I think it's so important. The more we can kind of reiterate who those numbers are, I think it's great. I think what you guys did was really monumental and very, very helpful and supportive for the kids and the families, and I think the community very appreciative of all the work that.
Anything that we missed, Dr. Busak? Mr. Medic?
Just to add into the partnership with Cigna, we're going to work with them to take their professional development and train our staff to recognize the signs and symptoms within adolescents, but also within other adults in college. Because, as we know, tragedies such as this have a very profound impact on numerous staff members, both at the high school, middle school, and many of our other schools. So again, we also recognize that at this time of the year, holidays pose a need for additional support and services, and many triggers can occur. So we want to ensure that our professional staff is appropriately supported as well as our students. So we're working with Cigna to create a program that's unique for our district that provides our staff the safe skill necessary to recognize the needs in themselves and our schools.
You said there's students who are coming forward with ideas and wanting to volunteer. Are you guys thinking of maybe having a committee, or how do you make those kinds of things come to life for kids?
At the moment, I would have to let that rest with Mr. Rankwitz, who's having conversations with those students. I think he's looking at and hearing all their suggestions and thinking about how to help motivate them and coordinate them. And so I don't want to speak out of turn on where he's going with that.
Thank you. Because I know that for sure that's happening, and I've talked to a number of the students myself, some of them even on the phone over the past weekend. I think I have one waiting for a call back from me as we speak, as a matter of fact, and if we get out early enough tonight, I might call one of the students back on the ride home. But they're working closely with both the counseling department here and Mr. Rankwitz, and I think some more will come out of that, but better spoken to when we have I'd like to put this information out there. We've gotten a lot of feedback in though, without even necessarily soliciting it, because teenagers at home, they sometimes give feedback whether you ask or not. In this case, that's a good thing. I just want to take a moment too and echo, I didn't want to steal any more of your thunder and relaying that information, but our faculty and staff was fantastic. They're nothing shy of fantastic throughout all of this. We had folks here at the high school all day, all night, working with students. Students did come, they did access the services, and we put up those counseling hours. We had administrators come through on Saturday, on Sunday. Thank you to Dr. Merriman was here Monday night, Tuesday night, I believe, when we were at other meetings with you. That was still going on here, so we still had administrators like Dr. Merriman come in, Dr. Rusek came through. I spent some time here with them. Mr. Rankwitz was here every moment that students were here. And I think that speaks volumes that people stepped up and pitched in that way. And they weren't just folks from the high school. They were, of course, high school folks, but Ms. Chase was here. There were elementary people here. There were middle school people here. They came to the funeral home who helped support the family too. And it hasn't stopped. It has continued to go on. They worked with the students during the play because Ethan was very involved in theater. And that was another need. Of course, just as this happened, play was just about to go on this past week. So I just can't say enough good. I'll repeat what I said to the staff that helped in an email to thank them. And as I said to them, this probably says everything that anyone needs to know. As much as it may seem that I did, if you're looking in from the outside in this crisis, I've never done so little in a crisis as a superintendent, because the people on this team and the people in the buildings did so much and had it going without, as Kate said, us prompting it. So, another example of bringing a community together in a tragic time, but I think it showed us what people work here are made of. I'm very grateful. That's it, unless you have any other questions for me. It's the extent of my report. I'm sure there's other things to tell you, but it's through the state. We can talk about some other time. Thanksgiving looms.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to extend the opportunity to Amir, since he is joining us. Are you amenable to having him give his report now? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Sorry for my absence, my son was at the football game and trying to do a jack of all
I was
trades.
getting a lot of updates. I couldn't keep checking. How did it turn out?
We're
A lot of work.
we're behind.
Simsbury
But
tonight.
yeah, but we're trying. We haven't scored yet when I left. We didn't score.
But we will.
But we will.
But we will.
They're
The
playing
chant
hard.
goes on like I believe that we
They're
will.
playing hard no matter what.
Most of the things were already said. Veterans Day, we had the play that happened. We also had on October 31st, actually Halloween, we had some students from Thompson Brook come to our school and Pine Grove, sorry. And they participated in just walking around the school in their costumes with the seniors and giving out, receiving canned goods that were going to be donated to a charity. So that's something new. We've never done that before. It was a great idea because we're not only just thinking about ourselves in the school and throwing candy, but bringing elementary students in and also doing something that would help build beyond the community in our school. And lastly, because I don't have really much to say, because I'm trying to get back to football game, but I wanted to take, if we could, a moment of silence to recognize to recognize those who have feelings that we as people never are able to put into words. For those who have ever been bullied, for those who ever just feel like they can't share their story with somebody else. And not just my big thing when I was like, a moment of silence, how do we do this? Well, how do I prompt it? Is not let's not just have a moment of silence every time one of these situations occur, but then let's move on and try to find solutions. Let's try to find ways where we can have those conversations, bring students together. One of the hardest things that I heard students try to do was basically figure out, well, did you know? Well, did you know what happened? Was there any signs? Were there any signs? Or did you know? What could you have done? What could you have done? We try to place the blame on somebody. When really, we can't place the blame. We're just trying to fill a void that we can't fill. So this moment of silence is a reflection period, more rather than a time of just silence. So we can do that really quickly. It's 3 seconds.
Do you need motion for this?
I don't know.
I'm teasing.
No, I don't know. Yeah, we could do that really quickly. Thank you so much for allowing me to do that. And that is the extent of my report. If it may be so, I'm going to excuse myself from the table.
Get back.
Yes. I need to see that. And that is it. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And then I'll see you all next meeting. And of course in the hallways and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That was very thoughtful, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and joining us. Just yell, shoot.
Oh, I was.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes,
I know. Okay. So now we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, so Houston moves, Jay seconds, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, so moves unanimously.
May I ask a question through the chair on the new business? It occurred to me after we talked about these Board of Ed meetings. Do you have a motion to approve these to move these forward? That's not on the agenda. Can I ask one of you to make the motion to approve these so that we can actually submit them to the town? I think we're missing that as an item, unless you want to continue to discuss them and come back in December. I know the town is just waiting for us to give them something.
Motion to approve.
Houston moves, Jackie seconds, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion moves.
Thank you. Apologize for neglecting it on the new business.
All right, so the next item under new business would be approval of the Avon High School course proposal recommendations. Any questions or comments? Did you want to speak to it at all?
I can speak quickly. This was a proposal that came forward to the Curriculum and Professional Development Council, and it's just for a name change of making computer modeling for Gaming 3 the computer programming for game 3. As we're looking at the courses and the sequencing, they're not sequenced as they best could be. And I think part of that was we had one tech ed teacher at one point, we were just flying along and he just kept adding numbers to it. So they would like to change the title of this because it really isn't a gaming course, and then it would not require the prerequisite number 1. And number 2, they want to start looking at how maybe that works in support of some of our AP computer science classes, and they support one another back and forth. So that's another reason for pulling out of that gaming 1, 2, 3. My question to them, which they answered in order for this to go through, is what if students have already taken this course and then take it again because it has a new title in terms of transcripts. So we have about 15 students that have taken the course. They would be required to take it at the honors level, and they would be required to start where they left off in the other course and move it to a much higher level in order to get credit for that course the second time around.
They're moving the title from computing modeling for gaming 3 to computer programming for gaming 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Houston moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jason seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Jason seconded.
Thank you.
Right? Okay. Next is approval of the RBS locker contract award to PSI New England Storage Products. I do actually have a motion to read. Do you want to speak to it first? Or do we want to make?
We did talk about it at the finance committee, but not a full board, so.
Right, no, and we have page 36, we go through the detail. I don't know if you want to add to that, or?
No, just that we're very excited to be bringing this forward, and we really appreciate the board's acceptance of the recommendation, as steel is becoming farther and farther for lead time, and if we could possibly put our order in, we're hoping to get it in for April vacation. So,
And it's a much needed refurbishment at
Very much so.
yes.
Overdue.
Okay, so I will go ahead and read the motion. Motion to approve the RBS student locker contract recommended for an award to PSI New England Storage Products with an estimated total cost of $46,449.14. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And next is, I do have another motion to read for your approval of AHS Natural Turf Field Contract to Liberty Landscape, LLC. This is referring to what we affectionately call the field hockey field, if people aren't certain of which one we're referring to. So again, Ms. Michaud, did you want to speak to this at all?
Again, very exciting. This is a long time coming. We discussed this last week in finance. Mother Nature is not cooperating with us, but we did get word from Liberty Landscape. The ground isn't frozen yet. They're still going to try. So we would really appreciate your support on this. No, it's going to be fine. So we can move this forward, and everyone pray to Mother Nature to let us this happen.
Were there any questions on this? Or I can read the motion. Motion to approve, did you, Jay?
I just had a comment, which I made at the committee, was that we make sure that the people who are installed in this field have the experience with field hockey and make sure that it is properly prepared and maintained for the sport, which is well needed and something that we've lacked in the past in this field.
Can I ask one quick question? I'm sorry, as much as I joked about the weather. In the event that they can't do it in the next couple of months, do we have to start this process again in the spring, or is this quote contract will carry through and they can pick it up?
It'll carry through. We went through the proper bid spec and whatnot.
So if they can't get it, as much as we want it done now, if they can't, the bid's
We'll
hold.
commence the minute it's in.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, motion to approve the AHS multipurpose field refurbishment project to Liberty Landscapes LLC with an estimated total cost of $70,000.
I'll second.
All right, 2 seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Communication from Avon Board of Education members. No? All right, thank you. Communication from the public. All set. Okay. And so so now we will be moving into executive session. We're inviting Dr. Carnamola, we're inviting Mrs. Shaw and Mr. Medic as well. So I guess I move to go into executive session knowing that there will be a brief breakdown period for our cameraman, Eric, at 8:09. Do I have a second?
Second. Whoa, we are the party.
I'll give it to Jackie
I think
this
Jackie
time.
got that.
Jackie's got the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Happy Thanksgiving.